Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to Folk Tales and Real Life Stories with Oma. I hope you have right there with you your ice cream and popcorn, because I promise you that you are going to be intrigued. It's going to be worth your time. Are you ready? Okay, let's dive in.
Queen Adaeze and her best friend, Nneka, were once inseparable. They had grown up together in the village of Umudike, their bond as strong as blood. But when Prince Anayo, a regal and noble man, became the heir to the throne, their friendship was put to the ultimate test. Nneka's parents were friends with Prince Anayo's late parents, and Nneka had long harbored secret feelings for the prince. Even as a child, she admired him during family visits to the late king's household. While playing together, she would dream of winning his heart one day. Nneka introduced Adaeze to Prince Anayo, never imagining that he would choose her best friend over her. When the prince fell in love with Adaeze, Nneka's affection turned into bitter jealousy. Though she tried to hide her feelings, her heart was poisoned with resentment. She could not reconcile the fact that her dearest friend had won the love of the prince she had always yearned for. As the wedding day approached, Nneka's jealousy morphed into a consuming hatred. She began to subtly undermine Adaze's confidence, whispering lies and doubts into her ear. One evening, as they sat in Adaze's chambers, Nneka leaned in close, her voice barely a whisper. "Are you sure he's the one for you?" Nneka asked, her eyes narrowing slightly. "The palace life is not what it seems, Adaeze. It can be suffocating, and who knows what kind of person Prince Anayo truly is behind closed doors." Adaeze looked at her friend, confusion clouding her eyes. "What do you mean, Nneka?" "Anayo is kind, gentle, and—" "That's what he shows the world," Nneka interrupted, her voice low and filled with false concern. "But people change, especially when they have power. I'm just saying, be cautious." Adaeze, steadfast in her love, shook her head. "I trust him, Nneka. He's always been honest with me." Nneka forced a smile, her heart burning with envy. "Of course, Adaeze. I only want what's best for you." The wedding was a grand affair, filled with music and celebration, but behind the scenes, Nneka's heart darkened further. She could hardly bear to see her friend in the position she had always dreamed of. Her bitterness grew stronger each day until it became a dangerous obsession. Nneka resolved to rid herself of Adaeze, believing that only then could she take her place beside the prince. Her first attempt involved a carefully crafted plan to poison Adaeze. She slipped a deadly herb into a pot of tea intended for the queen, but the queen's maid, distracted by an urgent summons, accidentally spilled the tea before Adaeze could drink it. Adaeze, oblivious to the danger she had narrowly escaped, continued to trust Nneka, but Nneka was undeterred. She devised another plot. This time, she arranged a hunting trip where Adaeze would be placed in harm's way. 2 disloyal guards were bribed to lead the queen along a path frequented by wild animals. However, the queen's loyal guards intervened in time, saving her from any danger. "Thank you for your bravery," Adaeze said, her voice shaking slightly as she addressed the guards. "I don't know what would have happened without you." "It is our duty, Your Majesty," one of the guards replied, bowing deeply. But Nneka, watching from a distance, clenched her fists. "Fools," she muttered under her breath, "they ruin everything." Nneka's frustration grew as each of her schemes against Adaeze failed. Her envy had festered into a deep hatred, and she knew she had to be more cunning if she was ever to succeed. However, the queen conceived and had a son for the king. This created a great joy in the palace and the community of Mbala, and also created a gap between the queen and the wicked Nneka. The queen was not allowed to receive female visitors apart from her mother or the king's mother. Failed. Her envy had festered into a deep hatred, and she knew she had to be more cunning if she was ever to succeed. However, the queen conceived and had a son for the king. This created a great joy in the palace and the community of Mbala, and also created a gap between the queen and the wicked Nneka. The queen was not allowed to receive female visitors apart from her mother or the king's mother until the baby prince grows to become 7 years old. One would think that Nneka should give up and look for a way to settle down with any of her numerous suitors. However, the birth of Prince Chibuzo had only deepened her resolve. She could no longer bear the sight of Adaeze's happiness. So after 7 years, Nneka was still unmarried, became more furious, and devised another plot. Again, Nneka attempted to poison Adaeze's food during a royal feast. She carefully sprinkled a deadly herb into a dish meant for the queen, but Adaeze, distracted by Prince Chibuzo's innocent playfulness, never touched it. Every attempt Nneka made to harm Adaeze failed, much to her growing frustration. Determined to succeed, Nneka resorted to an even more sinister plan. She knew of an old superstition that the Otuocha River was dangerous for anyone from the royal family on Eka Day, a sacred day when the river goddess Ezenwanyi walked the waters. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the palace, Nneka sat in her chambers, plotting her next move. She summoned her most trusted maid. "Amara, I need your assistance again," Nneka began, her voice cold and calculated. "We've been too cautious, too restrained. It's time to take bolder steps." Amara, though loyal, was always uneasy when Nneka spoke in such a tone. "What do you plan, my lady?" she asked, trying to hide her apprehension. Nneka leaned in closer, her eyes narrowing. "The queen has to be removed, and this time we will not leave it to chance. We'll use her own trust against her. I want you to spread a rumor, a whisper that the river goddess Ezenwanyi will grant eternal beauty and fertility to any woman who visits her on Eka Day. Make sure this rumor reaches the queen's ears." Amara hesitated. "But my lady, the queen trusts you. Won't she question such advice?" Nneka smirked, a sinister smile curling at the corners of her lips. "That's the beauty of it, Amara. I will be the one to warn her of the dangers, and in doing so, she will believe I am concerned for her well-being. When I then suggest that she, as one who married into royalty, is not bound by the same rules, she will believe me." Amara nodded slowly, understanding the depth of Nneka's manipulation. "As you wish, my lady." Nneka dismissed her with a wave of her hand, a cruel satisfaction washing over her. This time her plan would not fail. Days passed, and the rumor began to spread throughout the palace, as Nneka had instructed. Soon Queen Adaeze heard the whispers from the palace maids. One afternoon, Adaeze confided in Nneka as they walked through the royal gardens. The sun was warm, and the scent of blooming flowers filled the air. "Nneka, have you heard the tales the maids are spreading? They say the river goddess Ezenwanyi blesses women who visit her on Eka Day with beauty and fertility," Adaeze said, her tone light but curious. Nneka feigned surprise, then concern. "Yes, I have heard it. But Adaeze, you know there is danger in visiting the river on Eka Day. It is said that the goddess punishes those of royal blood who dare approach her then. Thou, you are not really born into royalty." Adaeze frowned slightly. "Yes, I wasn't born into royalty. I married into it. Perhaps it's different for me." Nneka sighed deeply, placing a hand on Adaeze's arm. "I would never forgive myself if something happened to you, Adaeze. But if you truly believe that you are exempt, maybe it could bring you the blessings you seek. After all, you have always been special in the eyes of the gods. I know the gods will favor you, and there is really need for you to secure the heart the king with more children. I don't want another woman to share your home with you, my dear friend." The queen looked thoughtful, her mind racing with the possibilities. Nneka's words, laced with subtle manipulation, planted the seed of doubt and temptation. Later that evening, as Adaeze sat with King Anayo, she broached the subject carefully. The king was deep in thought, reviewing matters of the kingdom, but he immediately noticed her hesitance. "What troubles you, Adaeze?" he asked, his voice gentle. She hesitated, then spoke. "I've been hearing these tales about the river goddess. Nneka told me it might be different for me since I wasn't born into royalty." The king looked at her with concern. "Adaeze, I don't want you taking unnecessary risks. We've been blessed with Chibuzo, and our life is full. What more could you need?" Adaeze smiled softly. "I know, Anayo, but it's not about need. It's about securing our future, ensuring that our son has siblings to support him. The king sighed, knowing that when Adaeze set her mind on something, it was hard to dissuade her. "If you must go, take the royal guards with you, but please be careful." Adaeze nodded, feeling both reassured and determined. On the fateful Eek day, Adaeze prepared to visit the Otuocha River, as Nneka had suggested. Nneka watched from the palace entrance, her heart pounding with anticipation. Everything had been set in motion. All she needed now was for Adaeze to take the final step. As the queen and her guards approached the river, the air around them grew heavy with a stillness. The once calm waters of Otuocha began to ripple, and a cold breeze swept through the trees. Adaeze hesitated, feeling a strange unease. Is this truly wise, she thought, but Nneka's words echoed in her mind, convincing her that she was different, that the goddess would see her intentions and bless her. As she knelt by the water's edge, the river suddenly surged, and the goddess Ezenwanyi appeared, her form towering over the queen. Adaeze's breath caught in her throat as she gazed up at the goddess, whose eyes burned with anger. "Why have you come here, child of man? You dare seek my favor on a day of sacred solitude?" Ezenwanyi's voice boomed like thunder, shaking the ground beneath Adaeze. The queen, trembling, tried to explain. I was told, I thought..."
But the goddess was not swayed. "You have been deceived, Adaeze, and now you will pay the price for foolishness." With a wave of her hand, Ezenwanyi cursed Adaeze, her voice echoing through the valley. "You shall wither as the river dries, your health fading like the setting sun. Your lineage shall suffer for the sins of deceit." The queen collapsed, weakened and stricken by the curse, as her guards rushed to her side, their faces pale with fear. Back at the palace, Nneka waited impatiently for news. When word arrived that the queen had returned gravely ill, she allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. Finally, her plan had succeeded. But as the days passed and Adaeze's condition worsened, Nneka's unease grew. She had wanted to eliminate Adaeze immediately, but the goddess's curse was wasting more time than she had anticipated. King Anayo, desperate and grief-stricken, had exhausted every healer in the kingdom, but nothing seemed to cure his beloved wife. The Queen Adaeze lay bedridden, the palace shrouded in a veil of sorrow. The once vibrant halls were now silent, save for the whispers of the servants and the quiet sobs of Prince Chibuzo by his mother's side. One stormy night, as thunder roared outside the palace walls, Adaeze lay on her deathbed, her breathing shallow and labored. The wind howled through the corridors, mirroring the queen's inner turmoil. Nneka entered the room, thinking Adaeze was asleep. She approached the bed, a wicked smile curling her lips. "Soon," she whispered to herself, "soon, all of this will be mine." But Adaeze, her eyes barely open, heard her. She remained still, feigning sleep, waiting for Nneka to leave. As soon as she left, she summoned strength and asked her guard to call the king. The king immediately rushed to her and stood by her bedside, holding her hand. When Adaeze opened her eyes, her voice barely above a whisper. Unbeknownst to many, Queen Adaeze had a younger sister named Emma, who had been estranged from her for years. Nneka's machinations had successfully framed Emma as a traitor, causing Adaeze to lose trust in her sister. Emma, who had always known of Nneka's evil intentions, had tried to warn Adaeze, but Nneka's deceit was too powerful. "Anayo, bring Emma to me. I need to see my sister." The king's heart ached at the mention of Emma, whom he had banished from the palace under Nneka's influence. He hesitated, but seeing the pleading in Adaeze's eyes, he nodded. "I will bring her, my love. Rest now," he said softly, kissing her forehead. As the king left the room, Adaeze turned her head slightly, her thoughts swirling with memories of her sister. Emma had always been loyal, always protective. How could she have doubted her? The next day, Emma arrived at the palace, escorted by the royal guard, her heart heavy with sorrow and confusion. She looked around, noticing the somber atmosphere. Her heart pounded with anxiety as she was led to her sister's chambers. The sisters had not spoken in years, their bond severed by Nneka's lies. When she entered, she saw Adaeze lying weak and frail, a shadow of her former self. Tears welled in Emma's eyes as she rushed to her sister's side. "Adaeze! Oh, Adaeze!" Emma cried, holding her sister's hand. "Amma, I'm so sorry," Adaeze whispered, her voice breaking. "I should have listened to you. I should have trusted you." Amma shook her head, wiping her tears. "No, Adaeze, don't apologize. We were both victims of Nneka's deceit. I'm just glad I'm here with you now." They embraced, their bond stronger than ever, even in the face of impending loss. "Emma, I need you to promise me something," Adaeze said, her eyes filled with urgency. "Take care of Chibuzo. Protect him from Nneka, from everything." "I promise, Adaeze. I will protect him with my life," Emma vowed, her voice firm despite the pain in her heart. Unbeknownst to them, Nneka was standing outside the chamber listening. Her blood ran cold as she realized the depth of the bond between the sisters. Panic began to set in as she considered what might happen if Emma uncovered the full extent of her treachery. Nneka knew she had to act quickly. Emma's return to the palace threatened everything she had worked so hard to achieve. She needed to find a way to eliminate both Adaeze and Emma before they could unravel her schemes. That night, Nneka sought out her old accomplice, the witch Udoka, who had assisted her in previous plots. In the dead of night, they met in the darkened corners of the palace gardens. "Udoka, I need your help once more," Nneka whispered urgently. "Adaeze is dying, but Emma has returned, and she's already rekindled her bond with the queen. I fear she will turn the king against me if I don't act soon." Udoka eyed her suspiciously. "You've always been a bold one, Nneka, but this time you're playing with fire. If Emma discovers the truth, it won't just be you who suffers. Are you sure you want to go down this path?" Nneka clenched her fists, her desperation clear. "I have no choice, Udoka. If I don't act now, everything I've built will crumble. I need a poison, one that will make it look like Adaeze succumbed to her illness and that MMA was involved." Udoka sighed, knowing the weight of what Nneka was asking. But she also knew there was no turning back for Nneka now. "Very well, but be warned, Nneka. This path will lead to your downfall." Nneka ignored the warning, her mind already set. She took the vial Udoka handed her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you, Udoka. I will handle the rest." As she returned to the palace, Nneka carefully formulated her plan. She would use the poison on Adaeze, ensuring her death appeared natural. Then, she would plant evidence to frame MMA, casting suspicion on her return to the palace. But as she walked through the silent halls, the weight of her actions began to press on her. For the first time, she felt a pang of guilt, a fleeting moment of doubt. But she quickly pushed it aside, steeling herself for what needed to be done. The following morning, Nneka prepared the poison, mixing it into a tonic that would be given to Adaeze. She waited for the perfect moment when Emma would be alone with her sister, ensuring that any suspicion would fall on her. Emma sat by Adaeze's bedside, holding her sister's hand as she tried to comfort her. "You'll get better, Adaeze. I'm here now. We'll get through this together." Adaeze smiled weakly, her strength fading. "Thank you, I'm so glad you're here." As Emma reached for the tonic on the bedside table, intending to give it to Adaeze, Nneka watched from the shadows, her heart racing. This was it, the final act. But as Emma lifted the cup to Adaeze's lips, something in the queen's eyes changed. She looked directly at Nneka's hiding spot, as if she knew she was there. In that moment, Adaeze pushed the cup away, a look of realization dawning on her face. "Emma, don't," Adaeze whispered, her voice filled with sudden clarity. Emma froze, sensing the change in her sister. "What's wrong, Adaeze?" Adaeze struggled to sit up, her eyes locked on Nneka's hiding place. Nneka, she's... Before she could finish, the queen collapsed, the effort too much for her weakened state. Emma cried out, catching her sister as she fell, the tonic still on her hand. At that moment, the doors burst open, and King Anayo entered with the royal guards, having been alerted by one of the servants who heard Emma shout. "Nneka!" the king shouted, his voice filled with fury. "What have you done?" Nneka stepped out from the shadows, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. She knew she had been caught, but she was happy that Queen Adaeze, who could have given her away, has passed out. She quickly accused Emma of trying to poison her sister, Amara. Her loyal maid quickly interjected and said yes. "I saw Emma putting something into the queen's drink." Emma couldn't say anything. Her sister was unconscious and the tonic was still in her hand. King ordered the guards to seize her, but Nneka, trying to appear benevolent, told to King to just send her away immediately because she was secretly afraid that the queen could wake up and expose her. The king, who already has doubts about Emma, asked the guard to escort her out of the palace. Emma was escorted out of the palace, her heart heavy with the weight of her sister's last words. "Take care of Chibuzo. Protect him from Nneka." Adaeze's life faded. She found solace in her sister's presence before passing on. But that happened before she could reveal Nneka's treachery to King Anayo. Nneka, ever cunning, convinced the grieving king to send MMA far away from the kingdom, ensuring that he remained unaware of the reconciliation. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe, like, and share so you can get notification when part 2 is released. Let us know in the comments section what you are expecting to happen next. Let us also know if you have any choice story you would want us to tell.